maybe we can prevent, we can do a lot of prevention rather than just try to manage situations as they come. So today I am joined by my colleague, Kendi Gikunda. I don't know if she's in a position to just say hi, Kendi.
Hello, Njoki. Hi, everyone. I can only stay for so long. I hope my internet holds. I'm not in a place with good internet, but it's nice to be here and nice to see all of you again.
Thank you, Kendi. So today's training is going to be based in a very large part on this Defy Hate Now social media mitigation field guide. And that field guide, I don't know if all of you, I think the last time we were here for training, we gave you access to the field guide, and Kendi is the architect for the field guide. So it would be really nice if whatever questions you have, you can direct them to me and her so that we can get this session along. So before we start, are there any questions, any remnant from the last session, anything that anybody would like to say before we start? Even just to say hi, because I've not heard any of you say anything yet. Even just to say hi. As a representative of the group that is here today.
Hello, Joki. How are you?
Hi, Robert.
How are you?
I'm very fine. How are you doing? Are you in Juba? I hear it's very hot.
Where in Juba?
Yes. I've heard people complaining about it being very hot in Juba.
Yeah, it is very hot actually in Juba these days. But we hope it will rain yesterday or it will rain today or tomorrow.
Mm.
Yeah. Nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you. So, Robert, as somebody who's speaking for the group, tell me a bit about your expectations of today. What do you intend to take from the training today?
Actually, I've just tapped in.
Okay.
Even I've just tapped in. Even I've not concentrated much even on today's session.
Okay.
I was busy with other office work and we turn the microphone to someone else also to speak on behalf of the group.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem. Let's just start. So I'm going to want today's session to be sort of more of a discussion even than last time, because what we're going to be talking about today on the issues of identity, on the issues of like common hate speech expressions that we come across, whether online or offline. It's something that I can give you my side, for example, from what we have learned in our research and from where I am, but to contextualize it to your particular situations and where you are. So I'm going to need a lot of back and forth. So I'm going to tell you my side, and I'm going to need you to tell me your side. And so coming across a lot of this hate speech expressions, for some of us, because I don't know anything about your context, I can come across something and think maybe it is very innocent. Somebody who said that did not have anything in mind. But because you have the background and you know exactly what has led to that particular expression being used on a certain group of people, then you might be able to recognize it more. So I'm going to need this to be a bit more of a discussion. So
okay, that's good.
I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is, like I said, social identity, and then it's going to lead up, because these hate speech expressions that we are talking about, they only come about because we are using those particular expressions to talk about a certain group of people. So we're going to talk about how those groups of people, how those identities are formed. Because, when you were born, you're born in as much as, yes, you are maybe part of a family, part of a certain tribe or a certain country. There are also parts of your identity that you get from wherever you are, that you get from maybe when you grow up, your particular interests that you have, everything, even from how your body looks like, because we have a whole entire movement right now of people who look a certain way. There's a whole entire movement because there's hate being directed towards them. So we look at all this identity. How is identity formed? How do you identify? How does this identity then turn either into a positive thing or a negative thing? Because everything has both a positive side and a negative side. And then now, after that, we're going to look at this common hate speech expressions that certain groups of people have to deal with, that are usually used to either denigrate or show hate towards certain groups of people. So let's talk about identity, social identity. So identity, as you can see here, it highlights the groups we belong to, where you're born in, your family. You identify as part of your family. And in where I come from, for us, that's having a last name, for example. So your last name denotes your family, where you come from. You're named after maybe your dad's family, so that is your identity. So your playgroups, your village, geographically where you're born, and in Africa, of course, where you're born, that means also the tribe that you are born into, and that forms a very, very huge part of your identity. So your religion, your nationality, your tribe, your language. So with this identity, we have an us versus them. I am a Christian, this other person is a Muslim, so this is us versus them. And it starts out extremely early because, when you're a child, you see, we go to the church, these ones go to the mosque, or these ones go to the temple. So an identity is formed right there. So depending on the language you speak, depending on even where you go to school, in Kenya, there's a whole thing about schools, especially high schools. The high school that you go to, it becomes sort of your identity. It is an us versus them. Oh, look at them over there doing this. And then we are us. This is how we behave. People of a certain schools, this is how we dress. This is how we behave. This is how we speak. So identities can be formed along very different things. And when we look at this social identity wheel, so what we can see is that identity is not just one thing. This is what we call intersectionality. Your identity there's an intersection of things. So you have maybe your age group. You're a millennial, you're a Gen Z, you're a Gen X, you're a baby boomer. But that is not just your identity, because there's also your ethnicity. Are you Black? Are you white? So somebody who's from maybe the millennial generation and another person who is from the Gen Z generation, but they're both from the same ethnicity, their identities intersect at that point. So you can have, you're made up of so many facets of your identity. Your marital status, your disability. You can just, when you look at this wheel and you look at yourself, because this is not even exhaustive, this is just an example of several things or many things that can make up your identity. Now, I think here I will pose to ask, when you look at either this identity wheel or just yourself, what do you think is the most prominent part of your identity? When somebody asks you, tell me a little bit about yourself, what do you lead with? For example, if you're a woman, is that for you more of your identity, or is it that maybe the fact that you're African? So does that mean then that you as a woman and a white woman have more in common than a man who is an African, because sort of that identity as an African, you put it right behind. I just want to start this discussion about identity. What is very important to you in terms of identity? And just have volunteers. Just tell me, in terms of this identity wheel and how you identify yourself, what do you put prominently as what mainly identifies you? Can we have volunteers? Yeah.
Yeah. I think for our case here in South Sudan,
yes,
mainly it is a tribe. People mainly
what is
identify
a tribe?
themselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but people mainly identify themselves first to the tribe. Then other things follow.
Okay, so you have more in common with, let's say, somebody who is a woman and of a completely different profession from yours. Let's say if you're a man and you're an engineer from a certain tribe, you have more in common with a person who is a woman and a teacher from your same tribe than a man who is an engineer but from another tribe.
No, it might not really be like that, but the thing is, here mostly we value the tribes.
Okay.
That's just how we do it here. People mostly attach themselves more to the tribe than even to their maybe colleagues or something like that.
Okay. So then, somebody else, I had some. Oh, by the way, I cannot see you. So just when you talk, introduce yourself first so that I know who I'm speaking to.
Yeah, this is Joseph Henry.
Joseph, okay. Thank you, Joseph. So we've heard about tribes. Somebody else? You can either just agree with him or add something on top of that. Okay, no problem. Let's just take tribe being the main. Oh, yes.
Yes, we are talking about identity, the importance of identity, isn't it?
Yes, we're talking about identity and how identities are formed.
Yeah, actually, identity it's very important. Having an identity you can be able to give a sense of it can give you a sense of belonging to a certain.
Yes,
community.
Identity does give you a sense of belonging. That's very true.
Which is important for your well-being and confidence also within the community or society.
Yes. So identity gives you like a sense of belonging to a group. And whenever you feel like you belong in a certain group, that gives you a certain amount of security. So to you, what is the most, we've heard from Joseph that the most prominent part in most South Sudanese people is tribe. What would you say is the most prominent part of your identity?
It's a value that you hold as a person.
Is what?
Belief, value.
Values, personal values.
Values and the belief or norms within the culture and community where you belong.
Values and beliefs in culture, yeah. So as you can see, in as much as that is the prominent part of your identity you put forward, you still have a lot of things that you identify as. And one thing I know, and I hope all of us are identifying as, are peace builders. We are all here to be part of the peace building movement. So I will identify as, a woman, an African, a Kenyan, but I will also identify as a peace builder. So when we look at this social identity wheel, we can always find a sort of a similarity we have with somebody else, because we are so used to looking at people like, those are those people over there and we are over here. But when you look at that person from another group, you find that when you look at this social identity wheel and you look at all these parts that make up identity, you can always find something you have, a similarity you have with somebody from another another group. You can, in as much as maybe you don't belong to the same main group, there are also maybe a little values and beliefs, as we have had, or anything sort of social and interests, your age, your economic status, your political views, anything. There's just something, some sort of similarities that you can look at and find you have with somebody from another group. Now, the problem most of the time with identity is we tend to magnify the differences between us and sort of minimize the similarities. So if we decide what we are basing identity on is gender, or is tribe, or is race, then we tend to overlook everything else we might have similar to somebody from the other group. And we just magnify the differences and magnify the differences. And then that is where conflict is born, because we are always looking at those people as people with a different opinion or different way of doing things, just a different culture, different beliefs. And then we magnify these different beliefs to be something that is extremely negative. And then the conflict starts coming from there, which is where now we start lobbying, hate speech back and forth, or, these people are this. We start stereotyping, we start having prejudice, we start discriminating against them. And whenever there is those things I've mentioned present, discrimination, prejudice, bias, and stereotyping, then it has a much larger consequence than just not maybe liking somebody from a different group. Because discrimination, especially in the sense that sometimes it enters even to the top levels of institutions and governments. And as Africans, we know that something like tribalism can prevent you from either accessing services or opportunities for work, for school, for anything. And so we need to start amplifying. We need to start being the positive voices. We amplify positivity and inclusion and just ensure that we do not feed the voices of negative groupings, because everything has a positive and a negative side. And if we look at identity in a positive manner, it is not bad for you to be proud of the tribe that you're born to. It's a very positive thing to be proud of your culture, to be proud of the people that you're in the same tribe with. Maybe you wear the same clothes and you have the same dances and you share the same food and you share the same, common stories. So it is not a negative thing, but where it is being used as a sort of to look at something in a superior and inferior way. So that's when the conflict starts. So looking at all these components of the social identity wheel, saying that you are part of this group does not make you better than somebody of another group. If you have this level of education, it does not make you superior to a person of either a lesser level of education, or it does not make you inferior to somebody who has a higher level of education. Same thing with language. If you speak this language I speak, for example, if I speak English and I meet somebody who cannot speak English, it doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that that person has anything wrong with them or is inferior to an English-speaking person. So when you look at the components of the social identity wheel, so I want us to start, as we are moving forward, to just start thinking positively in terms of, in as much as this person is of a different, say, tribe, it's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing. They just do things a bit differently from yours. It doesn't mean that how you do things is the correct way, it's just the way you do things. You do things either in your country, in your tribe, in your region, in your family as well. So if we start looking at the social identity wheel as just people being different, not people being less, not people being more, not people being bigger than, not people being less than, as just people being different. Oh, you see, I am here, you are there, we are just different, but We're just more of the same. And we, even in our difference, share a lot of similarities. So it is very, very easy to find similarities with others, even those we consider of a completely different group from ours. Yeah. And how we construct this identity. Yeah. I have, 5 ways we do that. So one can be through your family, which is this is how you're first socialized when you're born. This is how your family does things. Your family comes, and even your own family is informed by things like, for example, the religion that they're in, or the region where they come from, geographically where you're placed, the culture, the beliefs, the values. So your family is the first way that you are socialized. So through socialization in family, your friends, your religion, the media, very important, which is where we all come in as much as we might not be very formal media. Even right now, all of us are sort of part of the media movement. As long as you have a social media account, you are part of, the larger media, because you can dispense information. Other people can read what you've written, what your views are. So what we get from media and from just how the societal norms, how the society how the society around you, the attitudes they have towards certain topics, towards certain happenings, events, towards certain people. So I have this thing about socialization, and I want to ask you guys a question. I want you to tell me how you have seen this. So let's say you have people of South Sudanese origin living here in Kenya. You have them living maybe in Uganda. You have some living in Australia, in the US, in Europe, wherever. So if a child is born today to South Sudanese parents in Nairobi, and another child is born to South Sudanese parents in, say, Germany, and another child is born to South Sudanese parents in South Sudan, do you think that those 3 children will grow up having a lot in common, little in common, more in common? How do you think those 3 children, the kind of socialization that they will get from where they are, how it will affect their growth? What do you think they will have in common? I'm throwing the question over to you because I'm sure you've come across. Yes, Christopher.
Yeah, in that case, they will be having different kind of behaviors. In case maybe others may copy cultural activities from Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
The one maybe from the other country will copy other type of other maybe activities that they are doing there. And the one maybe in South Sudan will be with the same criteria of people who are with him. That case, because he has no other, he have not get addicted to his own identity in his country. He didn't get maybe he didn't get some more things that is happening in South Sudan. They are adapting more from Kenya, maybe from the other country that he's maybe staying in. This is the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christopher. Joseph, do you agree with Christopher?
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
But what I would say is that actually, someone like a South Sudanese child who was born in Kenya or Germany, as you said, they will, with a South Sudanese child born in South Sudan, I think they will have less in common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they will have more in differences than the similarities, because those are different societies. And though they are South Sudanese, but when you're born there, the life there is totally different from here, and that one will affect their identity more than just being a South Sudanese.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's true, because our society, like whatever surrounds us, has so much more to do with our socialization, which is why when you look at the issue, especially of tribes, just somebody being your tribe, because when you're this tribe, it doesn't matter where you're born, you're that tribe because your parents are from that tribe, and then you inherit that tribe from your parents. But even as a person from that tribe, you will have less in common with somebody from your own tribe in South Sudan than somebody from another tribe in South Sudan. So our environment has so much to do with how we are socialized, our attitudes towards everything, and how we see things. But then also what you have to remember is that this child who is born of South Sudanese parents in Germany will be different from a child that is born to white German parents, in as much as they have been brought up in the same environment. They've gone to the same schools, they attended the same parties, but because what is happening in their family life is different in their home, they will also have a bit of differences. So identity is not just linear. It doesn't just depend on one thing. We'll say, in as much as this child might be different from somebody born in South Sudan, they'll also be different from somebody who is born in Germany, but of parents of a different race, of a different culture. So those differences and similarities, yeah, they're not something that is quite so significant. They're not written in stone. Everything is relative. It depends on where you were born to who. Even sometimes it depends on maybe how old your parents were born, when you were born is different. Your experience will be different from somebody else. And so looking at all those parts of identity, when you hold so strong to saying, oh, this person is like me because we are of the same tribe, might not 100% be true. Maybe they're just like you because they were socialized in the same circle as you. So our identity feels normal to us. We don't even think about it every day. We think that is how life is supposed to be. But when you meet somebody from another place and they look at what you're doing like it's very weird, you understand that it is not normal. It is just what is normal to you. It's not what is normal to everyone else. And when we understand that looking at other people doing something differently is the same way as they are looking at us doing what we consider normal things, they look at us and think, oh, those ones are doing it quite differently. Maybe they do not know what they're doing. Then we will, I think, have a lot of empathy for other people and their beliefs and their cultures and their societal norms, and not just, look at it in a way where we are being derisive. You're saying, oh, look at those people, what they're doing. These people are so primitive, they don't know what they're doing. Maybe somebody else is looking at you and saying the same about your own societal norms. So we need to get to a place of empathy. And when you're going out, because I know you're going to go out and amplify the message, people need to understand. I'll give you an example. When I was in school, we had to learn a unit called Managing Across Cultures, because we were taking something that had an international connotation. So you had to know how to navigate across different cultures. Say, like right now, I am navigating across different cultures. I'm talking to people from a different culture. The thing is, how would you act if they did something that is completely taboo in your culture? Or even just something that is seen as, language is not even just only about words. It's even about gestures, is what we do. Like, for example, what if you're talking to, let's say, an Indian person? They shake their head and they mean yes. And in your culture, that means yes, but in their culture, that means no. And that can either provide a miscommunication or can lead you to think that these people do not understand language as it is supposed to be understood. So we need to have a lot of empathy and understanding towards other people's beliefs, other people's culture, and what forms other people's identities. Yeah. So it has a lot of issues of identity, have a lot of effects again, both positive and negative. We've already heard from Joseph. That was not Joseph, but we heard from somebody who said that identity gives you a sense of belonging. It does give you a sense of belonging, a sense of something that is shared. When you know maybe this is what you believe and you share those beliefs with somebody else, or you have these interests, you like racing cars and you find your group of people who also like racing cars, it gives you a very nice sense of belonging and feeling like you were not alone. But also on the negative side, somebody else can look at you because you're not part either of whatever group that they think is their primary identity group, and sort of find a way to make it negative and start talking badly about people of another group. Oh, this tribe, stereotyping, they usually do this. I mean, I come from a tribe of people in Kenya who everybody talks about, these people and their love of money and their thieves and this and the other. Just celebrate the fact that we are different without having to go into looking for very negative things to say about each other. And as put here, identities, they change with time. What was your main identity, like who you were 5 years ago, 2 years ago, when you were a child, is not the same person you are now as an adult. When you move from here, maybe you move from South Sudan, you come live in Nairobi, you find something else that interests you, and you stop, your identity sort of changes from where you are to where you are right now. You go to school, you start working in a certain profession, you join the army, there are a lot of things that can change your identity. You're unmarried, now you're married, you're young, now you are older, your identities are sort of fluid, they keep changing. So if you hold on to one identity so much, for example, if you were unmarried and then you used to really talk badly about married people, and then now you're married and your identity has fully changed, now you're experiencing, what is on the other side. So we need to be very conscious when trying to sort of defend our identities or where we stand as we identify ourselves, not to use our identity, as a chance to speak badly, I would say, about people from a different identity. Yeah. So you can read this. I'm going to send. We're going to send this presentation to you. You can read a lot about sex and gender-based identity, which to most people is what they lead with, because when you're born, everybody wants to know your gender reveal parties. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? And from that time, however you're treated consciously, with people thinking, oh, this is a girl, so this is what should happen. This is a boy, so this is what should happen. And that leads to, it has led to a lot of disparities, I would say, in opportunities offered, whether it is in education, whether it is in work. And there's a lot of conflict that is coming, especially in the modern era, with gender identities and how you're treated being a man or a woman or a boy and a girl. And I think for most, in as much as, yes, in a place like South Sudan, we lead with tribe, I would say for most people, gender is the most obvious identity. Because sometimes when I meet you, I wouldn't know where you come from, your tribe, but I will look at you and say, oh, this is a man or this is a woman. And so my treatment of you will depend on whatever identity I look at you and place you as. So we start talking to boys in a different way. Here in Kenya, we say, when we're talking about boys, when they're growing up, when boys cry, when a boy falls down, you don't treat them the same as when a girl does, because boys are meant to be tough. You translate it in Swahili, they say boys are meant to be tough, when boy is not supposed to cry, boy is not supposed to do this. But then when it comes to a girl, you're told, oh, a girl is not supposed to sit like this, a girl is not supposed to be present with the uncles and the father here. And so that identity, it affects a lot about how your life will go, about how everybody in the society will treat you, about what is expected of you as a person, and issues of gender roles and what is expected of you as a girl, as a boy, when you're married, whenever you go to the workplace, whenever you go to whatever you are in society, the things that really follow you. So sex and gender-based identity are one of the most, I would say, controversial, but also something that we need to look at the most, because even when you go to, say, government offices, I see nowadays here in Kenya, they always have something called a gender desk. And mostly gender is euphemism for women and female, so whatever issues that you might have as a woman, because they have been ignored for so long in our society, we are sort of trying to make strides into making whoever is a woman sort of doesn't make them feel left behind just because of the fact that they're a woman. Yeah. So before we continue on to the pyramid of hate, does anybody have a comment, a question, just something to contribute to the discussion? Oh, I see we have a few questions here. Why is there always violence and hatred whenever there is an identity? And how will you stop an arrogant way from different barrier of community as your identity? So Elikana, if I read you correctly, you're asking why there's always violence and hatred whenever there's an identity. And how will we stop an arrogant way of identifying? So as I have been explaining, there's always a positive and a negative connotation to this identity. And if you look at your identity in terms of superiority and inferiority, there's always going to be violence and hatred and arrogance, sorry. So when you look at it in terms so I identify as this tribe, or identify as this, identify as a man, or identify as this, but then you look down on other people who are identifying in a different way, somebody who's in a different sort of group from yours. Now that is where violence and hatred comes in. But when we look at it just in terms of, we have differences, that's it. We speak a different language. Maybe we look a different way. We have a different culture. It might not be better or good or bad or worse than the other person's culture or language or tradition. It is just different. But in places like Africa, speak for us, where tribes, traditionally, it's something that goes way back. We always were like, African tribes were sort of like countries in themselves, in that you had your own tribe that had its own sort of government, it had its own leaders and everything. But then you're forced to come together. The borders are drawn and now you belong to one country and you're supposed to be ruled by somebody from, a different tribe. So it's something that goes back many generations. And these tribes, the divide and rule concept of tribal politics in Africa. And from the onset, you are shown that this other person is your enemy. But we are not. We have never, and we are not enemies, not now. We were never enemies then. So if we start because we can only do it in our own small way. We cannot say, oh, we're going to go through this training and then we're going to change everybody's opinion now. But when you start in your own small way, looking at strategies on how to ensure that your identity and another person's identity does not have to lead to violence, is what we're saying. Saying be proud of your identity. There's nothing wrong with you being proud of who you are and where you're from and your culture and everything and your identity. But then it does not mean that the other person can also not be proud of theirs. And you being proud of your identity doesn't mean you're saying the other person's identity is bad. It just means you're proud of yourself and where you come from, but you acknowledge that the other person is just different. That's it. So we're going to look at several strategies that we can take as ourselves, just in our own way, small steps towards ensuring that we can create this, we can start the conversation and we can create sort of a safe space where people can understand. Because for a lot of people, you can even just find it's lack of education and lack of awareness. They do not know any other way to do it. So that is why we are here. That's why we are learning about this, so that we can take whatever it is that we learn here and we can go to our respective communities and we can go to the people that we either share an identity with or people from a different identity, and we can let them know that there's a different way to do things. Yeah. What if I'm born in South Sudan and my parents issue my national identity as South Sudan, later grow up in Australia? How can my identity be different here? Oh, we were talking about identities changing. So you were born in South Sudan, your identity was, you were South Sudanese. That's where you grew up. You identify with the culture and the norms of the people. And then you go to, there's something, definitely when you get there, there are things that are going to, even just how you look at, maybe how you look at things or how you do certain things, your identity is going to change, because now you've just come from being somebody who is South Sudanese. Now you're what you call an immigrant. Your identity has changed. So now you are in a complete other pot, yeah, of immigrants, and you face completely a different set of challenges or different set of views from when you were here in South Sudan. So when you talk to people who are there and when you talk to people who are here, they don't exactly, in as much as they're all South Sudanese. So you being South Sudanese in a South Sudanese country with everybody around you being the same versus you being the minority in another place, your identity will definitely change. Yeah. Thank you. So anybody else has anything to contribute to the questions that we've had? You have a different opinion, same opinion, but want to say it in a different way? Okay. Okay, then we can move on to the pyramid of hate. And so this pyramid of hate, what it does is it shows you just how starting with words and attitudes can move from there, and how it has moved in the past from there to violence, even up to genocide. Yeah. And so it just starts with stereotyping. Oh, you can say these people are like this, or these people start saying, everything that has happened, it happens because this group of people are not either doing something or are doing something. So you start feeling like you are disenfranchised because a certain group of people are doing something. Maybe they're preventing you from getting opportunities. Maybe they're the ones who are taking all the resources that you're supposed to have. So you're just stereotyping, and you have this fear of your differences. This person does not believe like me, does not think like me. It can be even religious. Oh, this person does not believe that the person we believe is in our religion is very important. They don't also hold the same beliefs. So you have just that fear of the differences, and you're justifying your bias. You live in something that is called, what do we call them? An echo chamber. So you just take people who think like you. You never seek out people who have different opinions or different views or a different group. So you just insulate yourself with the people that think like you or talk like you. And I see a lot of this on Facebook because they allow groups, you know? So you just have a group maybe for people who just speak your language and think like you. So there's a lot of groupthink on the internet. So the only place, you never visit anywhere with a different opinion. You will never go to a group or a page of people who think differently or people who are of a different identity or different culture, different anything, to just see, you know, maybe what we are saying about them is not true. Maybe whatever it is they think, it's not even that bad. So you stay in these echo chambers, which regurgitate over and over. Oh, you know, these people, they're like this, these people, they're like this. And a lot of misinformation also is put in such spaces because there's nobody to counter it. If I'm coming to say, you know, this tribe of people, there's nobody from the other tribe to come and say, oh, no, you see, that is not true. This is what we do, or we do not do this, or we do not do the other. So you find a lot of exaggerations and a lot of lies that happen in these echo chambers. So you're only seeking information to confirm your beliefs, not to ask if they're true or not. You just want somebody who's going to tell you, oh yeah, by the way, whatever it is you're saying, that is true. And that is where it starts. So when you have these people, and you know, groupthink is something that is quite dangerous. If you're just saying something and you're thinking it by yourself, that's you know, the chain is broken. So if you have somebody here who's thinking, and then it goes to another person who thinks the same, and it goes to another person who doesn't, then the chain is broken there. But if you just have the same group ideology, and nobody is looking, because if you already have bias against a certain group of people, you're not going to go out of their way to prove that what people are saying about them is wrong. So your biased attitudes, yeah, you don't look at yourself. You don't. What do we call it? We call it accusations in a mirror. Yeah. So whatever it is, even that people from your side are doing, you just accuse people from another group, from the other group of doing. So you never have that self-reflection and just say, well, maybe this is happening because, you know, this and this, the other. You never look at intent or anything. You just think whatever it is that they do, you always take their intent as negative. So the first step is usually the biased attitude. Just, you know, words, hashtag, it starts with words. So you just start with words. You start spreading, oh, you know, these people like this, these people like the other, these people like this. And then now, from the biased attitudes, it now crosses over to actual acts of bias. And you start with the language, which is what we're going to talk about next, common expressions of hate. You start using either defamatory or degrading language when you're referring to them, sensitive remarks. You know, microaggressions might not be very outward, but there's just something, there's tensions are starting to build. And one thing we need to be very careful of is this issue of biased jokes. Even in my own country, we tell a lot of jokes that are based on tribe, yeah? But a lot of these jokes, people hide inside saying, oh, you know, we were only joking. You say something very derogatory about maybe women or men or people from a certain tribe or people from a certain race. And then when people call you out on it, you can say, you know, just grow a sense of humor. I was just joking. This is nothing serious. So those jokes, and we are not saying you cannot use humor when you're talking about maybe people from somewhere, but there are those very belittling jokes. You know, always your jokes have to be depicting people from that group, doing something terrible, doing something, bad. It was never, because even these jokes convey a message. And like we said, communication is not just about words. It can be anything. It can be just a cartoon strip you're drawing about people from a certain group. And these people are always doing something, but they're never doing something positive. They're always doing something. In your jokes, they're always doing something bad. So you just keep on. Already somebody who has a biased attitude. Now they take that propaganda and it starts snowballing. It snowballs into something, really big. So cultural appropriation, social avoidance or exclusion, name calling, ridiculing, bullying, slurs, calling people all sorts of names, and dehumanization. Dehumanization is, you start equating them to things that are not human. You start calling them bugs, animals, or this or that. Just you try and take the humanity from them, because then you are not required to have empathy for them if they are not fully human. And so from the acts of bias, then it goes on to systematic discrimination. This is what I was talking about when we were talking about institutions and government. When it gets to a point where it has gotten to institutions and there are criminal justice disparities, there are inequitable school resources distribution, housing, everything, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to any sort of government assistance, any sort of opportunities you might have to work or to go to school or anything, you find one side, which is very heavy on a particular group of people, is almost totally ignored by the people in power, by the people in administrative posts. But instead, they concentrate their resources on people from a particular set, whether it's in schools, maybe the administration will even fail people from a certain group, whether ethnic group or tribe or whatever. They will fail you. They will offer more resources to people from a group that they align with. So when it starts being at government level, at administrative level, then it has moved just from the people to now it being overt discrimination that you can completely see, discrimination that is not even being, hidden. This person, it's a message. It's like a message is being told to this person that you are not worthy, you're not as worthy of this as the person in the next group. And so from there, then it becomes bias-motivated violence. Violence against these people that you think are from a different group than yours. And if it has already come from systematic discrimination to bias-motivated violence, then you know that the people who are supposed to protect you will almost always not protect you because they are part of the system. They're part of the system that does not think you as a group are valuable enough. So if now threats against you start, or desecration, vandalism, everything, they will not offer the same protection that they would have offered to people in another group. And of course, that, as we know from history, snowballs into acts of deliberate and systematic annihilation of certain peoples. Sorry. So at any one point during this pyramid of hate, we need to step in. This is why we're here. And we need to step in right here at the biased attitudes, because this is what we are seeing. This is how it starts. And whenever you see these attitudes being talked about, being bandied about, so it's up to us as peace builders to start from wherever step we see. And for me, it's usually from down there, from the biased attitudes, because there's a lot of misinformation and fake news and everything going about different groups of people. And this now will form our attitudes of how we think about them. So when I have a biased attitude towards someone, that means if I see violence being meted against them, it will not really affect me because I already have that attitude. I already think, but anyway, see, these people are the people who do this or say this, maybe they deserve whatever it is they're getting. So we need to start by completely changing the attitudes. Yeah, and how can we do this? So we have several strategies, but I think I would throw the question to you. What do you think we can do to sort of bring about positive change when it comes to starting the conversation and trying to change people's attitudes? What do you think in your own context? What do you think can be done? Again, volunteers. Yes, Joseph.
Yeah, I think mostly it is all about getting to inform them or to educate them, sensitize them, let them know the effects, and then the importance of being together and not discriminating, and all this, just giving them the information. Then that's where I think we can start from. And from there, they'll be able to make a decision whether to still continue with it or to change their ways.
Do you think in your context, this information has already been come out? Do you think people have been given this information? And how have they received it? If this information is something that has actually been on the ground, how have people received it? And if they know it but still don't act on it, then what else can we do?
Well, for our context here, I think we are still, the information is being passed, but the problem is that there's this discrimination and whatever, this negativity and all these things is deeply rooted. So it's not going to just take a short time for it to disappear. It will need time, yeah. With time, I think with continuous passing of the information, things will get better.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph. Robert, you have something to share with us?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it is in this context, it is not only into this context. Actually, number one, you can practice a random act of kindness in society.
Kindness in society, yes.
Yeah. Smiling at a stranger or holding the door open for someone. Yeah. It's like that, it can create a positive change in society.
I like that. So, yeah. Acts of personal kindness, yes.
Yeah, we can create a mission, like a business mission. Can make a social change impact.
Oh, social impact and change. It's very true. Thank you, Robert. Anybody else?
And then volunteer also. You can volunteer in the community.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off before you finished. Yes?
Number 3 is volunteer in your community. You can volunteer yourself doing other things within the community that is social change, make positive change.
Volunteer in the community, yes. Yeah.
Volunteering your time can help those organizations actually and allow them to continue providing the services the community relies on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Robert. Anybody else? Okay, so looking at strategies for positive change, I will agree with Joseph and I'll agree with Robert. So the first thing, usually the first step is education and awareness. And you can find for a lot of people, they actually do not, these things, like I talked about the echo chamber, you have been told about these things for so long that you actually think it is true. So there are people who actually do not know that whatever it is they're believing about another group of people is not true. They just think, these people deserve this because they're like this, they're like this. But when you bring about the education and the awareness, and you show people that whatever it is that they think might not be the truth, or might just be like one facet of the truth, they do not have like the whole picture. And what I would advise in the issue of education and awareness is, as you learn about, you need to learn about your own identity first, but also learn about other people's identities. Be a bit more interested in their culture, in the challenges that they face, in what they think about other people's culture. It might surprise you what they think about you, what they have been told, what they have been led to believe about people of your own identity. So if you take the time to learn about other people's, how their identity works, how it is formed, how they live, what they believe, and learn also about yourself, it might then lead you to have a bit more empathy, which is our second point. Have empathy and perspective. Look at things from another person's point of view. The proverbial putting yourself in another person's shoes. So understand them, understand where they come from, understand their struggles, their challenges, their happiness, everything. When you understand something about other people, it makes them more human. And again, as I keep on insisting, you actually come to understand that you have a lot more similarities than you have differences. The third thing is to challenge the bias and the stereotypes. Because in this issue of stereotypes, you might have had something from when you were very young. Imagine hearing something from the time you were 2 years old, and now you're 40 years old, and you've been hearing the same thing. So for somebody to come and challenge that bias, and challenging the bias, by the way, starts with your own self. It starts with you understanding your own biases, understanding your own, how you have your attitudes, your biased attitudes towards other people. So that's self-reflection. As you're looking at yourself and you're thinking, I actually have thought this about these people because of this and this and this, then you can be able to challenge the bias in other people. And you can tell them, you see, even me, I used to think this, but now I found out, because it comes with knowledge. We already talked about it in the first, it's education and awareness. And so through this knowledge, you have understood that whatever it is you believed was either not 100% right, or you had some things wrong. So when you challenge your own bias and wonder why you think about certain people in a certain way, then you can be able to challenge the bias in other people and have a multiplier effect. Challenge yourself, challenge the other person. Maybe the other person will challenge themselves, and they will challenge somebody else. And so we have that. We want that effect to move. Because of Joseph has said, this is not something that is going to take a week, 2 weeks, not something that is going to take a short time, something that is going to take us quite a while. But whatever, every little you do helps. And other than that, we have heard about volunteering and supporting the organizations that work to end this. So you can work in advocacy, activism, and it doesn't even have to be organized in just your own way, whatever your sphere of influence is. If your sphere of influence is just maybe your social media followers, or your sphere of influence is your colleagues, or is your neighbor where you live, or is your own family, wherever you have that sphere of influence, then you engage in activism and advocacy. You advocate for these things we are talking about. You advocate for peace. You advocate for love between certain people. You advocate for understanding. You advocate for perspective, and you don't care about it. You just keep advocating by volunteering in the community or by supporting the organizations that actually work to end the hate. Yeah. So you're good with that. Any question before we move? Okay. So these were examples coming from the pyramid of hate. We're looking at examples of genocides, that have happened. And when you look at this genocide, when you go back, I would really implore you, I know you know about all this, but just looking at chronologically how it happened and how it started, and then looking at it through the lens of the pyramid of hate, you can just see where, where the words started. It just starts with biased attitudes towards a certain people. If we take the example of the Rwandan genocide, it started with, Tutsis being labeled, cockroaches being said that, the Tutsis are the ones that are preventing us from getting jobs, the ones who have secured everything for themselves. It just had, and it was an echo chamber, and it was everywhere, from the media to the schools. Even when you go to school, you hear children in school telling you, we were going to school and the teacher used to say this to us. So it was everywhere. They just planted the biased attitudes, the attitudes of hate, of dehumanization. These people are not even human. They're just cockroaches, keep calling them over and over and over and over again. So by the time it boils to violence, then you find a lot of people are either okay with engaging in violence or okay with just sitting back and letting it happen and not doing nothing to stop it. And so if we can just get it from the point where it's just biased attitudes and change that, then it will not boil over to this devastating results that we see here. So as you see, biases can escalate, and it is important for us to address seemingly harmless acts of bias when they occur. And we can do that in several ways, addressing maybe the hate you see online or when you find people talking about it. So there's a way we can respond to these biases and this misinformation and hate speech and fake speech that we come across about certain groups of people. And so the first thing you can do is, confront the speaker. Whoever the speaker is, you can confront them. But in confronting this speaker, there are also several guidelines, and you can find them all in the field guide. I'm sure everybody has access to the field guide. It's free to download online. And we advise you to, A, not be abusive. So when you confront these biases and when you confront this hate speech that you come across, you cannot also use the same language that they're using. In as much as they can be using really bad abusive language, we're going to need you to not use abusive language. So just be, you be very firm, but also not be abusive. Just come with facts. That is, just be polite and come with facts and confront whatever they're saying, not them, but confront whatever it is they're saying. Because whatever they're saying, at times it's either not correct, it's based on just stereotypes and bias, and they don't have facts behind it, or they're just being hurtful. So you can just confront what the person has said, but confront it in a language that does not have to denigrate into abuse. And there are people who, they're just on platforms to promote hate. And even if you approach them and try and reason with them and show them reason, they're not there to show reason. They're just there to promote their agenda of insults and hate speech. And it is important to be able to discern such people and not give them a platform. Because for those people, what they want is a way to reach the maximum number of people with whatever hateful speech they're trying to bring forth. So if you offer them a platform, if you decide, oh, I'm going to argue with this one, or I'm going to post it somewhere on my wall, or I'm going to go and talk to them, such people are just there. They're not there they're not doing that because they don't. In fact, sometimes they even know whatever they're saying is not true and is not right, but they're just doing it to spread hate. So we say to that, do not feed the trolls. Yeah, don't give hate a platform. In as much as you might want to debunk what they're saying, or you might try to show them that what you're saying is not right. But if they're not receiving it, there are people who are just there to just spread. And they know for sure, they just take whatever statement, they just twist it, or somebody said this, they come and completely twist what that person was saying so that they put it and just advance hate. So it's best to avoid trolls. Always look at when posts were made. Yeah, when you're confronting. If it's something that maybe was said 2 years ago, it's really not something that you need to revive for you to come and comment on or confront something about it. So avoid responding to old posts. And also think of enlisting people who are influential to give a voice to whatever it is you're saying, while you're either confronting certain narratives, confronting certain people. So people with a bit more pull with people, a bit more influence, will help in spreading your message across. So what I've said is you're going to, one, confront the messages that you see online, within reason, of course. And we've already talked about educating people. You need to spread awareness and educate people on the effects of whatever it is they're saying. Because, you know, somebody can think, but I'm just writing this, or I'm just saying this, what effect can it have? It can have a really big effect. So education, and something that is quite important is supporting the recipients of these biases and of hate speech. Always show your support towards these people who, you know, people have already put them on a certain shelf, and they're like, oh, you know, these people are not worth. I came across something from the 90s today when I was going through a certain report, and it showed Princess Diana. I think it was either in the 80s or the 90s, when there was such a stigma against people who were living with HIV or AIDS. And there was the thing where you cannot touch them because, you know, they will spread the disease to you and everything. And such an influential figure as Princess Diana hugged an AIDS patient in front of the world, in front of cameras, in front of everyone. That is what I mean by showing support. You show that these people who are being targeted by this bias, this prejudice, this hate speech, this misinformation, you show that you support them positively. You know, you have always positive messages. You have inclusive and positive messaging. So you're not just standing aside and say, oh, you know, I'm not going to participate in this, but you actively support them, either when they face this hate speech, or just in your day-to-day, just showing that you can. Because a lot of people, maybe if people see this certain group of people just hate being directed at them all the time, they might start to believe it. But then if we have people who actually support them and you know, are very inclusive, when just having a meal with them, or, you know, listening to their music, it doesn't matter. Just show that you're being inclusive, and that might actually change people's minds. And lastly, it's bystander intervention. We've already talked about confronting, but that is, you know, you confront something when you see somebody feeling hate. But when you see somebody being the recipient of this bias and prejudice, you know, you go somewhere and you see somebody being discriminated against, as a bystander, when we all stand aside and just let it happen and, you know, do not intervene or anything, then we just we have fueled the fire for it to continue. But if it comes to a point where you know that if you are insulting this person or discriminating against this person or preventing this person from getting services, and you know other people are going to intervene, then it will drastically reduce the rate of bias and prejudice. Yeah. So before we move to the common hate speech expressions, And I see we're sort of running out of time. Does anybody have a question on the issue of prejudice and bias and hate speech? Or just a note? Oh, I see we have something. How the seeds of bias once planted, why so quickly growing biased ideas, nation and acts of violence. Okay, thank you for your question. We will get back to that. Kendi, are you still here? Let me check. Sorry. From biased ideas to discrimination and acts of violence. Why so fast? I don't really understand the question. Could you just quickly explain what you mean, Mr. Elikana? I'm really not understanding the question. How the seeds of bias once planted, they're so quickly growing to bias, from biased ideas to discrimination and acts of violence. I hope that's what you mean. Okay. So looking at the pyramid, there's nothing that quickly grows. This pyramid of hate, it's not something that quickly grows from like one step to the other. Like, for example, the biased attitude, from stereotyping and the fears of differences, and having that echo chamber that you have. It's not an immediate leap. It's usually something, it's just that the pyramid of hate is something that is condensed to fit. Because between the biased attitudes and the acts of bias, of course, there's a lot that happens. It starts with verbal, and even from acts of bias to systematic discrimination. It might even come with, changes in government. It can come with replacement of leaders from one to the other. There's nothing in this pyramid of hate that jumps quickly from one thing to the other. It's just that it is really condensed here for it to fit this illustration. However, we have a lot more information on the pyramid of hate on the field guide that you can go and have a look at. Yeah. Okay. Right. So for these common hate speech expressions, I took it from the field guide, where it's a field guide specifically designed for Cameroon. And what we do is try to put together a lexicon of hate speech expressions. These are living documents that show, the kind of attitudes that people have towards certain groups. And as we can see through the pyramid of hate, most conflicts are usually preceded by a narrative where you take words, you give them different meanings, you try, they might sound innocent on their own, but when you apply it in the context of maybe a certain tribe or a certain group of people, it is dehumanizing and insulting to them. Yeah. So we have a lexicon of hate speech and terms that we did for South Sudan, but that was in 2017 and 2018. So this is something that is dynamic. It changes as new words are used. So that might be a bit outdated. But we have one that is up to date for Cameroon, did in 2022. So I'm going to leave it up to you to explain to me what these terms mean to you personally. Is it something that is derogatory? Is it something that is hateful? What does it mean? This expression and terms, if they are said to you, does it make you feel like you are being insulted or denigrated? So I just need a volunteer to explain to me these terms. Or just add something else that you feel like is used as a common hate expression in South Sudan. Anyone? Guys, on this, I'm really going to need your help. Yes, Christopher.
For me, really, these words there, they are really new to me. So I really don't have idea on what they might be meaning. Yeah.
Okay, then can you give me something, a common hate expression like towards a tribe, anything that you are familiar with right now in South Sudan?
Well, the one I can really say for now is there's this other tribe which people normally refer to as they say it is Kedis, Naskedis, which is like cat. Like they say that those people turn into cats and then they go and maybe eat people and do all those kind of things. So they are nicknamed, like they call them cats.
Cats?
Yeah.
The animal, the cat?
Yeah, the animal, yeah.
Wow, okay, so that's quite dehumanizing. So does it have connotations of witchcraft? How do they turn into cats?
Well, they say it's witchcraft or what, I really don't know. But that's
okay.
What, and even just went even to an extent of songs being made, like mocking these people, I don't know.
Okay, yeah. That is a good example. So if you are if somebody from that tribe gets to hear them being called that, how do you think that goes down with them?
Well, definitely they are not. They don't feel well. They don't feel happy to hear. But then, what can they do? This is something which has gone already into the community.
That's very true.
Yeah. So it's really not good. Maybe this is just something maybe which happened maybe to one person, but since the person is from this tribe, then they just take it to be like it's a whole tribe, and which is not true actually.
That's true. So in Kenya, there's I don't know about South Sudan, but in Kenya there's legislation against hate speech, and so we had a situation where I think last year some musicians were arrested for singing some very tribal things. You know, they were from this particular tribe and they were singing some really bad tribal things about people from another tribe. And they were actually arrested. I don't know even how the case went, but yeah, it's quite different. So anyone else? I'd really be interested in hearing if anybody knows any of these terms and what they mean. Okay, while we're waiting, there's something that somebody brought up in another session that we had, and I thought was quite interesting. And in Kenya, we have sort of nicknames for tribes, yeah? We will call, before I go on, Abraham, you have something to say to us. Sorry, I can't hear you, Abraham.
So are you getting me?
Yes, I'm getting you now.
In South Sudan,
Mm-hmm.
we have this MTN nickname given to
Mm-hmm.
a tribe. My tribe, it is called Dinka.
Okay.
No, Dinka tribe, it is one of the largest tribes in South Sudan. They are everywhere.
Uh-huh.
In any corner you go within South Sudan or outside South Sudan, they are there. So people came up with this name. They are being called MTN. And so,
like the network, they're everywhere.
Yeah, because MTN, you know, they have that slogan saying MTN everywhere.
Yes.
So the term, this name to the Dinka tribe by calling them MTN. So like if you go everywhere, you get them. So they are common.
Do you think that's negative, or do you think that is negative?
Yeah, it is very negative because already a tribe has its own name. So at least if you call someone name, it seems abusive. It doesn't look all right. So it is too negative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another one on the list? Yes, Christopher.
Yeah, in the other one written Kokora, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one written Kokora, it was when South Sudan and Sudan were in the same, they have the same prison when the country was not divided into two. So that one came up with, that one was good. Maybe our politicians from South Sudan make another, that one, maybe it is in form of coup or what of that kind. That created that kind of movement. It is a military movement that is given that name Kokora. That it means division. It needs to be divided. Maybe the country has to be divided into two. That is the meaning of that term.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question though. Do you think there is a way that you can use a name to describe a tribe, but it not be hurtful or hateful? Do you think there's a way you can give maybe a tribe a nickname without it being hateful? Oh, where did you disappear?
There will be nothing. There will be nothing like that. As long as if you're Kenyan or you're South Sudanese or you're okay, I'm a Kuku, which means I am a Sap Kuku, which means nobody can. If you call me Kuku, which means I cannot get angry. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, yeah, because somebody raised that issue. In Kenya, we have nicknames for tribes, and it's not really taken badly. Like we will call a Maasai person Ndawo, and we actually just call them that directly to their face. Or Kikuyu. Somebody will be describing Kikuyus, and they will say, you know, Wasapere, and I don't even take it badly. So I really had to think about that. And I'm like, I think it's usually the intention behind names that give them meaning. Yeah. So I don't know, is that you, Bida, raising up your hand? I just see you as 2-on-1 check.
Yeah, sure. So actually there's same way names are made here which are not very offending. For instance, somebody from the Dinka tribe can be called Monjang, something of that kind. And they also can call people from Equatoria Dor or Mondor. So it's not considered offensive, but it's just sort of a nickname. But of course, they are, like you said, is basically the intentions. So sometimes it may not be a popular name, but for instance, we have issues of a lot of land grabbing in some parts of Equatoria and stuff like that. So you find that people calling others land grabbers. So you find that when some people are called land grabbers, you find they become annoyed. This is because they are not happy about the intentions as to why they are being called land grabbers. So it is purely the intentions. So there are also other names that that may not be here and may not be very popular, but when you actually give them to certain groups of people, they become offended. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Joseph?
Yeah, actually, what I wanted to say is that here there's a way, like as Bida was saying, Dinkas normally they call Equatorians as a Moindor. But then, as an Equatorian, you may feel bad because first of all, you don't know you don't know what this person is trying to say. Maybe you don't understand, or you don't know that that's how they call Equatorians. Or what is the reason behind them calling us or calling the Equatorians Moindor? So definitely in such a scenario, you are going to be you'll not know where to be, but you'll mostly feel not happy because you don't know what the meaning behind whatever they're saying. And also there's some issue that mostly I see here. You find that maybe a tribe here, you call someone by his tribe's name, like a Mundare. You say this one is a Mundare, and he knows he's a Mundare, but he feels offended.
Yes.
You see? Yeah,
yes.
He feels offended for you calling him a Mundare, and yet he knows he's a Mundare. So here, I don't know, is that one also hate speech or what? Or maybe even there's whereby there's an activity or there's something that they do weird to what you do. Then you tell, like you try to, you say to them that like this one for the cuckoos, they eat this bushrat. And then when you tell them that there are people who eat bushrat, then they feel offended. So I don't know how that one.
I guess it's also still about intent. Like, for example, if you just come at me and call me by my tribe and you know my name, or just don't ask me my name, but then you decide to just call me by my tribe. For me, it feels a bit combative. Yeah. If we know each other, then that's a different issue. And if that person has expressed to you before that they do not mind that, then that's not an issue. But just going and calling people by their tribes, a lot of people are not okay with that. But they just wonder, why, like, do you have a problem with me? Why is that? And on the issue of eating bushrat, it depends. Do you see bushrat as a bad thing? Eating bushrat, like, for example, for us, we have a certain group of people that eat these insects that come out when it rains. Yeah, to them it's a delicacy, but to the rest of us, we're looking at them and wondering why would you be eating those insects? So if I, who do not like those insects, call them by that name, it's quite offensive because I'm telling them, you're people who do these things that I do not like, or these things that are not considered, normal. You're taking whatever it is. You remember what we said about whatever they're doing is not wrong, it's just different. But you're taking it that because you don't do that, because you don't eat whatever they eat, you're using it as a way maybe to insult them. So maybe they take it as an insult and they're offended. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That's on the mother tongue. Okay. You can hear that.
I think from the example, number one, somebody has already explained the Indian and the Puk, and then the Nuernyo. I want to try to explain the number 5, which is Nyam Nyam. Nyam Nyam actually people who are lazy, who doesn't work, who doesn't want to wear a uniform, to fight people.
Okay.
Something. And this words actually it has been used by a specific tribe in Juba, in South Sudan. Actually, is the Dinka, who are using these words against the Equatorian people. That they just want to eat, they don't want to fight, they don't want to wear a uniform or to enter the army to go and fight other people. So they use the word nyam nyam, like you don't have use, you just want to eat and sleep, you don't want to go and fight. So this is, and it is offensive, it is not good.
Very offensive, yeah, that sounds extremely offensive.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
The someone
your connection is
actually 73.
The what?
Connection is cutting.
Yes, your connection,
My connection is well.
But now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
It's not stable, yeah.
Yeah, now it's stable, yeah.
So this word kokora actually it's came out around 1975, 1973 during the signing of peace agreement in Anyanya 1. That is in 1970s, I think, when South Sudan was divided into 3 regions: the region of Barakazal, the region of Upper Nile, and the Equatorial region. In the Equatorial region, people cannot be able to stay together in one place, so they've decided to create fights. So people have decided that anyone from Upper Nile, let them go back to Upper Nile. Anyone from Equatorial region, from Barakazal, let them go back to Barakazal. So the word kokora has started at that time. So the word kokora came at that time. It is like separation, division.
Okay.
Let the group, the group which is coming from that side, let them go back to the side so that people can stay peaceful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I guess that's it. Come to the end of our session with exactly 7 minutes remaining. I'm going to leave room for questions, but I'm going to look at our sort of action points, what we can take from today. And for me, what I like taking away from sessions is how to bring about positive change. We've already discussed this, so we're just going to go through the points. 1, educate and bring about awareness, which I'm sure you're going to do from here. Number 2, have empathy and perspective, and know that in as much as other people identify differently from you, does not mean there's anything wrong with that. And choose to see things not just from your own perspective, but from the perspective of people from other groups. Number 3, always, if you have a chance, challenge the bias and stereotypes that you see, whether in form of action, in form of words, in form of expressions. It's been done to somebody who's close to you or somebody not close to you. And in your own way, also challenge your own bias, let's take action. Number 4, we promote inclusivity and diversity. People do not have to think like you for them to be included in whatever it is you're doing. So always promote inclusivity and diversity. And then finally, advocacy and activism. And we have said activism doesn't have to be in a big way, doesn't have to be, can support the organizations that are trying to bring about change, but activism and advocacy in your own sphere of influence, whether it be your family, it be your own social media handles, it be your own, whether you're in a gathering and you hear somebody say, something completely derogatory about another group of people. So activism doesn't have to be something that, you see and you have banners and everything. Just advocate for your own beliefs in your own space. And that brings me to the end. So I will take whatever comments and questions that you have. That will fit into 4 minutes. Sorry, I can't hear you. There's somebody talking, but I can't really get you. Okay. Anybody has something to say before we end the session?
Hey, I really don't have a question. Just I will just appreciate the lecture. It was really a nice one.
You're very welcome, Joseph. So I see you have the attendance sheet that has been put on the chat. So I guess everybody will have to sign before you leave. But other than that, thank you so much for being an amazing audience. I hope we can meet again in other areas in our peace building missions. And I just hope you keep at it. This is a really good first step when you attend such trainings. Make sure you're a multiplier, like whatever it is you learn from this and every other session that you've attended, ensure that you multiply it. Multiply it in your circles, have your circles multiply it outwards. And yeah, let's build a very strong peace building movement together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll hand it over to you, Bida. Back over to you. So I guess, I don't know, Bida is not around. So again, I will thank you guys so much for the afternoon session. So hopefully, again, like I said, we see each other somewhere in the peace building space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karaoke, for the nice presentation. It has been an amazing opportunity learning first in the earlier session we had, and then this one. And we hope that we continue working together, as well as seeing that we share knowledge. And just like you've said, it is very much expected of each and every one of us to be able to go share this knowledge with your networks, to be able to go practice. You should be able to spot this head speech. You should online and stuff like that. You should be able to call out people who want to sort of use social media to spread hate speech and stuff like that. So it is the collective responsibility of each and every one of us. Don't think that because there's hate speech, it is the responsibility of an organization like Defy Hate Now to do that. So there are a lot of cases where there are certain things that people could do actually within their capacity, but they want to reach out to first the organization because they feel that it is the responsibility of the organization to counter hate speech. But no, it is a responsibility of each and every one of us to be able to counter hate speech. So let's use the knowledge that we have acquired from here to be able to spread the gospel, and we see that we somehow reduce these instances of hate speech online. I wish you the very best of your Eid al-Fitr, and take good care of yourselves. Greetings to the team over there in Kenya. It's okay.
I will pass your greetings. Thank you very much, Bida.
So